Thank you, dear Ambassador, dear Luigi, for being at Euronews Albania.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
As you know, Euronews is a 100% European name, and we as media, we try to do our best in advancing the democratic progress of Albania, of our country. First, if I may say, how do you find Euronews Albania's work in the first year of broadcasting?
Well, it's not because I'm here sitting in front of you, but I have to really congratulate you and your staff for settling down so rapidly. I particularly appreciate the deepness of the information that you provide in your program, in the news, but I also follow very much, as you know, social media. And I like the way you provide videos and information on social media. We are running so fast in our life that the news on social media becomes sometimes the first and only news we get. So the fact that you do it so well help us and help me as a EU ambassador to have the flavor also of a European Albanian network.
We try to do our best, as I guess you do with the yearly report that the European Commission published last weeks. Commissioner Várhelyi said that Albania is close to fulfilling all conditions for the first intergovernmental conference. The delegation has worked a lot on the report, we all read it, but are you happy with the findings?
I am, in the sense that despite the earthquake, despite the COVID crisis, the Albanian system has continued to progress. Of course, the progress changed between one area to the other, and we might have done more. Albania might have done more, and there is still work to do. So let's be clear. And we will talk about it, I'm sure. But as Commissioner Várhelyi said, Albania is close to fulfilling the conditions. There are a few of these elements that needs to be prepared. To reply to your question, am I satisfied? It was a long process. We had a new methodology. We work very much with the member states. So compared to last year, there was more synergy with the local embassies and with the ministries in the member states to have a report which is more felt as an ownership by the member state.
You said there are more things to... You said there are more things to be done. So how close is close? What has to be done before the first intergovernmental?
Well, I think the real point that needs to become super urgent is the fulfillment of the post in the Constitutional Court. You have probably seen me and other of my colleagues mentioning this almost daily. And indeed, the latest developments, the President, the Parliament, publishing the last available post, and now the Judicial Appointment Council called, I would say even urged, to go fast in evaluation and ranking, can still allow to have two more candidates before the end of the year in order to reach the quorum which is necessary for the Constitutional Court to work. This is necessary. It's a necessary condition for the first IGC to be called. Every member state are waiting for this to happen. So there is clearly an urge towards the Judicial Appointment Council and the other appointing authorities to do their best and even more in order not to miss the train this year of the IGC.
Let me stress this point again, the Constitutional Court functioning. As we see, it looks like it's more technical rather than intentional. In your analysis and the information you have, are there any particular bodies or individuals that are willing to block it, to stop the the election of the judges?
The public statement of all of the two appointing authorities, the President of the Republic and the Parliament, have been very clear. And we stick to that. And we invite them, of course, to follow their statement, which is they will do whatever they can in order to go faster into this process. You are right, there are technical elements. When a candidate is disqualified, he has a right to appeal. The appeal lasts up to 12 days. This is necessary for the CAD to transmit the list. But we expect the appointing authorities, once this is done, as they have said together in the meeting that Speaker Rucci and President Meta had in July, to go as fast as they can.
And again, apologize for insisting, but this looks like a crucial point for the first conference.
And it is.
Intergovernmental. How many judges should be appointed for the member states to consider the Constitutional Court functioning? It's
very clear, there must be 6.
6.
Because that's the quorum foreseen in the Constitution of Albania, in the constitutional law of Albania, for the Constitutional Court to be considered as fully functioning. They can take any decision once they have 6 members on the bench.
When will the decision to hold the conference will be taken?
Well, Ilva, we are entering a very interesting next 4 weeks. Starting from today, where in Brussels, while we speak, there are meetings going on of the EU ambassadors to the European Union. The next 4 to 6 weeks will be crucial for the member states in the Council to follow up on the progress report of the European Commission and take the final decision. As you know, this is a unanimous decision. So every member state has to be on board. It's a historical decision, and that's why it's so important that Albania present itself to this moment having done the homework.
So am I getting it right? Are there still chances the first intergovernmental conference may be held within this year?
It is not ruled out at all. You might consider me optimistic. I am a pragmatic optimistic. There is still a chance, if the Constitutional Court condition is fulfilled, that member states might appreciate the effort made by Albania, which, by the way, have been recognized in many areas by the member states, and therefore give the possibility to call to the German presidency of the Council to call the IGC still this year. It is not ruled out.
So is it just the Constitutional Court, or what Commissioner Vahey said during his speech in the Parliament, that the electoral reform as well is a condition? What does that mean?
That's very interesting and useful that you tell me, because it's very important to clarify this point. As you know, the European Union, together with its partner, have been very active in the run-up to the 5th of June agreement. And I want to, once again, after more than 3 months, still applaud the majority, the parliamentary opposition, the opposition for having engaged. That agreement, which has been then translated on the 23rd of July in amendments, has fulfilled the condition foreseen by the Council conclusion. Why? Because the Council conclusion were talking about the so-called OSCE or the recommendation on electoral administration. They were concerning the setting up of the electoral administration. This has been done on the 5th of June agreement. Then the next step, which has been the decision of the majority to move into the elements of the electoral system, is unrelated to the decision taken on the 5th of June. Therefore, and you know our position very well, we have regretted several times. I done it again only 2 days ago from Caucus by saying that we would have wanted to see this happening with the same compromise and positive spirit of the political council. That being said, this has happened, and now what needs to happen is to implement the electoral reform of the 5th of June. The 5th of June has to enter into force. I just met a few days ago, on Friday, the State Election Commissioner just appointed, and the Deputy State Election Commissioner, to see what needs to be done, what can we do to help to implement the 5th of June agreement.
So let me get again this straight. When Commissioner Vahey said electoral reform is a condition for the first IGC, does that mean we have to wait for the implementation of the electoral reform, such as after the elections, the 25th of April elections, or the 5th of June agreement considers it fulfilled, done?
The 5th of June agreement fulfills the implementation of the OSCE ODIHR recommendation, which, as you read very carefully, as you normally do, the Council conclusion is the condition foreseen for GIGC. In the second part of those conclusions, it is said that in the context of the negotiating framework, the reform needs to be implemented. And this means during the process of the negotiation. We expect, of course, the implementation to happen before the 25th of April, when the election will take place.
So once we have Constitutional Court, the first intergovernmental conference maybe.
This is up to the member states to assess.
Up to the member states. Now, it's me being too optimistic. I'll come back to the 5th of June agreement, but I wanted to have your take, your answer regarding what I really saw with concern, and I know that's very close to reality in the report, the widely spread corruption and the weak results against the fight against corruption. In your analysis, who is to be blamed for this phenomenon? Why the fight against corruption is not functioning?
The progress report presents two sides of the problem. On one side, we acknowledge that there has been some progress on the investigation, prosecution, and conviction of lower and middle ranking officials. On the other side, we continue, unfortunately, to acknowledge that this has not happened for the higher level of the public administration and the political side. Why this has not happened? Certainly, we should not forget that SPAC has been working for a few months only. Now we have the NBI director, and there is a selection of the 50 investigators. But I think the political will should be enhanced. What does it mean for this? It means that the whole political class needs to give signal that fighting corruption is a common effort of the whole society. Starting from the prosecution office, of course, going into the whole element of society. I have to say the initiative taken by SPAC to prosecute now, to investigate, 23 judges that were disqualified by the vetting, including 9 from the Constitutional Court to the High Court, is a signal in the right direction. At the same time, the report said that corruption, petty corruption, gross corruption is still widespread and a serious concern. Yeah. So the call is for moving to the next gear in the fight against corruption. The call is on SPAC, but the call is in the whole society, starting the political side, to give a signal that they are ready to be serious in this. And therefore, I'm sure that in the context of the negotiation, we will see progress. We expect progress.
Ambassador, when you say the political will should be giving messages, clear signals, what do you exactly mean? What has politics got to do with the prosecution of such crimes?
Well, of course, the prosecution has the lead, but it is clear that, for example, the selection of the candidate that will run to the election on the 25th of June, selecting candidates that they don't have any, let's say, elements concerning their criminal past or any element of suspecting concerning corruption cases will give a strong signal to the public opinion, to the Albanian society and to the European public opinion that the political class is giving a signal that is working hand in hand with the prosecution office.
Do you have this expectation when it comes to the political party candidates as well, the list they will select for the next parliamentary election?
Well, I expect them to be serious, to identify qualified candidates, people that can help to change this country, which is in need of a moving to another gear in the run-up to the integration. So very serious, very thorough assessment of the quality, of the integrity of the candidate, so that the Albanian can vote free and fair on the 25th of April.
Have you got any concerns so far regarding the candidates the political parties are contacting or are being...
I am not following at the moment, I have to tell you. I see that there is a process of selection. We will give our assessment when this process will be ended. But a call on the political parties is to do this exactly in this direction.
Ambassador Soreca, I would like to ask you for as much as you can answer, but I really want to ask this publicly to you. Not only because of your background, but as an EU ambassador as well, about the justice reform flows or problems that we have so far witnessed, the delay. If I was to ask you about problems or potential flaws in the justice reform, would you select one of them and say this, what I consider maybe a problem, should have been done differently?
That's a very good question, Ilva. The justice reform is not perfect. It is clear that it was a unique adventure in which Albania and its partner entered in 2016. The implementation of justice reform has shown, for example, the question of efficiency. There is a need for more resources. For example, for the vetting to go faster. There is the need of transitional measures to be taken. And I'm thinking, for example, about Court of Appeal. Some Court of Appeal in Albania, due to the vetting, have been emptied. Yep. Is Albania in need to have probably a transitional period where less Court of Appeal are available in order to fasten this process? So I think justice reform is more than necessary for Albania. There is a need to fasten this process? Absolutely, yes.
Maybe some requirements are necessary in terms of changing some laws or easing a bit the criteria, because they seem to be very high and candidates are being either pushed away or they don't want to get involved with the process, or they cannot meet the criteria which were intentionally made very hard to. Is it something we can adjust in the justice reform? I
think this is something that needs to be looked at in a second phase. Now, believe me, the real priority is to finalizing the setting up of the institution. So the utmost priority is to finalize the Constitutional Court, finalize the High Court, which is functioning in one chamber, which means that backlog is taken up. Then these things can be looked at. The fact that there were few candidates for 3 consecutive times running for Constitutional Court it's an element to be considered. And I think this will be the time when the Constitutional Court will be functioning to look at that.
Ambassador, you might have heard this, but I want an answer from you for the public as well. The fact that the European Union is part of the justice reform through the international monitoring operation makes some believe that EU has a kind of conflict of interest when it comes to the success of the reform. Are you being biased when analyzing this reform in Albania?
I was not here when the justice reform has been adopted. I was not involved. So I could look at the justice reform with a more distant eyes. And having my own background, as you know, I can look at those elements with a certain distance. Of course, I am the EU ambassador, so I'm involved in some way or another. What I can say is to repeat what I told you before. I think the justice reform is not perfect, and the implementation of it has shown that there is room for improvement. That being said, is strictly necessary for the country. The number of judges and prosecutors who have been dismissed is too high for imagine that it was not necessary. Therefore, it can be improved, yes. It is necessary, absolutely yes.
I'll go to another issue that actually you raised lately, the anti-defamation law, as we call it, the media law.
The media law.
Some journalists, most part of them, are not happy with it, and some member states are not happy with the current draft version that we have, and the government says that it will continue to approve it after considering the suggestions that have come from the Venice Commission. Should the government, in your view, retract from this law and take more time to consider, together with the media community, some adjustments of it, or go ahead and approve it?
Our position is very clear. I've been extremely vocal in the last months and even last year on this. We do consider that the best approach for any intervention at legislative level in the area of freedom of expression is through self-regulation. Anytime you try to regulate freedom of expression, there are tensions because the conflict inevitable between the political side and the world of media is inevitable. We do believe that if the government, if the ruling majority consider necessary to go ahead, and that's in their power, they should absolutely fulfill every single recommendation that the Venice Commission last June has issued. In order, we have said this in several times, we have said this at the highest level, we do not consider that a media law which is not in line with those recommendations would meet EU standards. Should they go ahead, it's a decision of the government. That being said, we will be extremely focused on what the government is doing. We have expressed concern. We are giving the expertise together with our Council of Europe colleague to make sure that the work is done. I understand and I welcome the position of the government to put quality over time. We will see the result, and then we will continue to ask for wide consultation of the media community. It's not conceivable to have a media law without the media community being involved and having sufficient time to express its position.
So as we speak, there is work being done between consultants from Council of Europe and the European Union and the government.
Indeed, there are consultant experts, international experts appointed by the Council of Europe with the EU funding that are working with the rapporteur in the Albanian Parliament, exchanging position on the context of the law. We have not seen yet a revised version. We are looking forward to see it, and we will be able to express our position, but consultation of media community is essential.
And since we are in a media and we like very much so here at Euronews fact-checking, let me ask you a question that needs some fact-checking. The European Union was a great friend during a very difficult time for Albania, during the earthquake and COVID-19 later. But I want to ask you about the generous donation, 100 million euros, that the Commission gave to Albania on the donors conference that was generously held in Brussels. The Prime Minister Edi Rama said last week that none of the funds has been delivered to Albania so far, zero investment. Is that the case?
I am a great fan of fact-checking, so I will give you the facts. I understand that we are entering into a pre-electoral mode, and some statement can be enhanced in a dialectic between political parties. But let's look at the facts. On the 17th of February, the European Commission has pledged 115 million of euro as a grants, which means donation. Means zero cost for the Albanian government. The member states have added also grants and loans up to reaching 1/3 of the 1.1 billion euro that was greatly reached that fantastic day. This is the biggest show of solidarity in the last 30 years, I think, that the European Union has given to Albania. Since then, all these 115 millions of the European Commission, of course, I'm talking on behalf of the EU, have been committed. And let me say...
By committed, you mean delivered?
Let me say, committed means, first of all, that following the pledge, despite the COVID crisis, those millions have been recommitted for Albania. Despite the situation in Europe, those 150 million were recommitted. Then contracts have been signed. Prime Minister Rama has signed the first of this with President von der Leyen on the day of the conference. For the first 15 million has been used, and when I say used, it means implemented, which means contracted with the UNDP Albania for the reconstruction of the first 22 schools. This has happened in April. The first of the work done by UNDP in Durrës and Kruja. This will cover 22 schools that will be finalized by the end of the year. Additional 60 millions are being now contracted with UNDP for the second part of the UFO school, which will bring 42 more schools to fruition. And I would like to come back to the concept of fruition in a moment. The other 40 millions have been already contracted, which means already delivered to UNOPS for the program EU for Culture. Let me now say what does it mean contracted. We do not transfer these funds in the budget of the Albanian state. This money are transferred to the UN agency that are implementing these two programs. And are implementing these two programs according to the principle of build back better and build back together with the community. For each of the 22 schools, the EU and UNDP have met the local community, the municipality. We have asked them to choose the school they want. Why we are doing this? Because we are not only the biggest donor in Albania, we are donating to a member of the family. And we want, therefore, the family to be participating to the choice of the school they want, to the choice of the cultural site that they want. So we work, of course, with the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Reconstruction, and the Ministry of Culture to identify the site at the school. But the management of the money is done by the EU agency.
I think I got a clearer picture, but let me make sure again. The 40 million for the heritage and the
40
culture
million.
is part of the 115 million.
75 millions are for you for school, 40 millions are for you for culture.
And they are already contracted.
Yes.
So has the Albanian public has the opportunity to see such investments in place in terms of schools?
Well, as I told you, 22 communities, including the municipality of Durrës, Kruja, Tumane, not only they are choosing their own school, and 4 of them are in this very moment already being reconstructed. The objective is to finalize the 65 schools by June 2021.
So
these are facts.
Yeah, facts. And you need better communication through your office and PM's office?
No, we have an excellent, we have 2 experts that have been detached, seconded to the Ministry of Reconstruction in order to help this flow of communication. As I said, we are entering into a pre-electoral mode, and I think solidarity to Albania has been so huge that I would certainly go into the fact-checking more than the public speaking.
Ambassador Soreca, also EU has been close to Albania after COVID-19 and the emergency that we had in terms of medical equipment. What has it been done so far?
We have contracted and spent 4 million euro in the very first weeks between April to July of medical equipment, 110 ICU beds, 120 ICU ventilators, 10,000 test kits have been delivered. We will finish next week the whole program with the X-ray big check control that will be delivered to one of the COVID-4. The reaction has been immediate. Once again, we have to thank UNOPS, who has helped us to compete in the world, that bring the best quality to Albania. This has made, in my view, a difference in the treatment of the Albanian patient in the last 5 months. This is only part of it. There is also 46 millions that will be transferred to the budget of Albania by the end of the year for the socio-economic recovery, and in particular the social inclusions. You have probably heard me talking about this in the last weeks. It's something to which I'm very much attached. It means working for the families in need, working for the youth, to make sure that, for example, even cash assistance is provided to the small, medium enterprise, to the families, to the youngsters that have lost their jobs. This will be transferred, the first 37 million, by the end of this year.
And again, since we're talking about funds, there was another generous amount mentioned by the Commissioner Verhey, 9 billion euros for the Western Balkans. Does Albania have to compete for different projects to get some funds, or they are already pre-designed?
No, this is a regional plan. All the projects have been included in the plan following consultation with the 6 partners in the country. So the Albanian government has identified in the preparation of the plan those projects that, having a regional dimension, were considered as a priority by the Albanian government. And those have been reflected in the plan. None of this project is only Albanian. It is, of course, to be implemented on the Albanian territory, but is a part of a regional. The rail system that will connect Podgorica to Durrës through Tirana, The pipeline that will be concluded from Fier to Vlora is part of the Adriatic pipeline. The Blue Highway that will connect Croatia to Greece will pass through Albania. Now it's very important that the Albanian authorities put together the part of the project that needs to be put into this basket. I heard this morning the Prime Minister talking about putting together a pool of expertise. I am looking forward for this to happen in order to benefit at best of this incredible and frankly, allow me to say, innovative approach to regional economic integration that it is the economic investment plan.
Well, I would like to talk now about the hottest actual issue. We mentioned a bit earlier the political situation and polarization that was mentioned in the progress report, the yearly report as well. Ambassador, we had that agreement. You and the international community, your American colleague and other member states applauded the 5th of June agreement. But in the end, in the parliament was voted unilaterally. And there were some, and I'm quoting here, extensions to this agreement. Will those extensions influence member states against the potential holding of the conference, the first intergovernmental conference, or the opening of negotiations?
I understand what you mean. Our position, as I told you before, is that the condition for the IGC has been fulfilled with the 5th of June agreement. But the Council also called for inclusiveness, in which sense that we would have, as I said, wanted to see this, also the extension, happening into a more inclusive way. But there are limits to what the European Union and the member states can do. The sovereign power of the parliament, of the Albanian authorities, does not allow us to do that. So what would be the position of the member states? We'll see. As I told you today, we start this moment of the next 4 to 6 weeks where we will see the position of member states. My feeling is that there is a will by the member states to acknowledge the progress made by Albania as a whole. That's why we said in the progress report the political dialogue needs to be improved, to give a sense that we are going all together in the right direction.
The President of the Republic has made it clear he will not sign this law and will send it back to the Parliament, and the majority has said that has no intention to change it. Is there still room for negotiation, or it's a done deal?
It seems to me that the position has been clarified by the two sides, and this is the prerogative of the President and the prerogative of the Parliament or the ruling majority. At this stage, what we want, what we as a EU is to approach the decision time in Brussels with the best possible political dialogue.
Ambassador Soreca, this is the first time that you are appointed as ambassador in a beautiful but not an easy country such as Albania, with a highly politically polarized climate. How do you feel? After 2 years, in September, it was 2 years of working in this country, and sometimes you were attacked by some and then asked again to work together. Can you share with us your feelings?
I think these 2 years have been intense. You are right, this is my first ambassador post, but I had quite hot spot in the past. And I worked with Albania already in the past. So I know that the political environment in this country is very much polarized. And the only way forward, I think, for an ambassador to try to be successful as far as possible, but at least to do their job, is to be balanced and to work on the fact. And the fact is that we work with the government who is in place at the moment we are working with that country. Of course, I'm working with the Rama government now, but as you might know, in my previous experience with this country, I worked with another government, and I delivered to that government probably the most important result that Albania has had from the European Union, which is visa liberalization. That government was the Berisha government in 2010 with the Foreign Minister, the President Mehta, and Minister of Interior, Mr. Bashar. And I worked 4 years with them. Working with the government that is in place is the only way possible for an ambassador to go through its own course.
Currently, we are facing heated debates and controversy between the President of the Republic and the Prime Ministers, Edi Rama. How do you see, as Ambassador of European Union, in this moment, this rhetoric, and who should be more tolerant in your view?
When I listen to all the political statements, which, as you say, are getting more heated, so I'm looking forward to the next months towards election. This is my first election that I witnessed in Albania. I also see one least common denominator, at least in the public statement, which is the attachment to EU integration. And as EU ambassador, I have to say that my invitation, my urge, my wish would be that this becomes the center where a compromise by all political forces beyond the political rhetoric is found. As you know, more than 90% of Albanians are in favor of EU integration. They want to join the EU. I haven't seen a single politician in this country saying that he is or she is against EU integration. That's, in my view, the common denominator where every politician should find its place and bring at the table of the next electoral campaign the concrete elements that the citizens of Albania wants to discuss for. What, for example, we are presenting in our campaign, Europe is here. Europa është këtu, now in the last 4 months and until next February, what we have done on the ground to help the Albanian citizens in their daily life.
You actually preceded me in the next question, which was your engagement lately with the Youth European Ambassadors Initiative that I saw you were very fond of, and you were talking
I am very fond
young
of this.
Albanians. How did you find talking to them? Are they feeling they want to leave the country, or they feel there is space, there is room for their contribution, and they are welcomed?
They want to be part of the game. They need to be empowered. They need to be listened. And that's what I am doing personally, I think since day one. Last year, the Europe Week was the power of youth. This year, we have launched this great project of the Young European Ambassador. I was in Kukës on Monday. One of them was with me. We are giving tasks to each of them, and in order to speak with the other young people. And what we want to achieve is to explain that they need to be part of the future of this country. 30% of Albanians are between 15 and 29. Everywhere I go, I meet amazing young people that 16 to 25, they just want to be heard. So let's make sure that they have a place, a forum, a structure, and we are providing that for them to show their amazing added value.
And since I mentioned your social media accounts, that you are very active, I see from the perception that I get is that you have a kind of stressful life from Monday to Friday, and then weekend you enjoy the beauties of Albania.
In order to restart again on Monday.
No, how are you enjoying the beauty, the natural beauty of the country? What do you think? What is missing there? Why can't we as Albanians benefit from this kind of beauty?
I think it's related to the fact that I am certainly a foreigner, even if I feel at home in Albania since day one. I am Italian, so from the south, so this probably it's inevitable. But I find amazing the contact with the people in the countryside when I go hiking or visiting. And as a EU ambassador, of course, I also try to understand how can I help Albania and the 61 municipalities to enter the process of integration. And by doing my social media efforts, presenting the beauty, sometimes endangered by the time, it's also to make sure that attention is given to the beauty of Albania that can become driver for economic recovery, tourism, job growth. And that's why this culture, EU for Culture, and the other investment that we are doing in the tourism have this long-term perspective to create a sustainable tourism, the one that bring here Germans, French, Brits, Scottish, Danes, and Italians.
Ambassador, what is expected on the visa-free movement side? Albania and Western Balkans remain isolated, although now they are below the EU average number of 100,000 infections per person for the last 15 days. When will we see any opening of the EU Schengen area anytime soon?
Well, I think this is it's a very technical process. My office provides every 2 weeks to the Council in Brussels the state of play. Member states, they meet, they assess the situation in the country. So every 2 weeks there is an assessment. I think, as you say, and rightly so, Albania at the moment is below the level of the infection that, as you know, in Europe is going quite high.
High numbers, yeah.
I would expect that the next months would be critical and probably no change in the next 2 to 3 months because the forecast in Europe is again not going in the right direction. So it would be difficult for the policymakers to take a decision to reopening Schengen. Of course, the visa-free approach is kept. We are going, by the way, to celebrate on the 15th of December this year the 10 years of the visa-free with hopefully a public event wherever possible. And I want to say that this has never been a question for Albania. It's a temporary solution, problem related to the dramatic situation in the member states of the European Union.
Ambassador, we had the Greek foreign minister yesterday in Tirana for a visit that resulted very important in terms of the maritime agreement that Albania and Greece have been suffering a long time to get an agreement, a bilateral agreement. Yeah. So now we are heading towards the International Court of Hague, such as we were announced by Prime Minister Rama and Foreign Minister Dendias. What's the EU stance on this? We had the spokesperson last night commenting on this, but how do you see this development between the two countries? Would there have been a problem in the framework, negotiating framework from Greece if this issue wasn't put in there?
Well, it is certainly a good step in the right direction. We welcome the decision by the two governments about deferring the issue. This unblock a situation that, while legally and strictly speaking, is not a condition for the EU integration of Albania. We don't have to forget that accession means also solution of border limitation among future and existing member states. So this is a very important step forward that would help, as I said, in the next weeks, the decision time. There are other issues that are more related to the EU integration between the two countries that are being taken care of. There is progress, there is need for more progress, but certainly this is a welcome development that we certainly acknowledge.
Where does the concerns, especially from Greece, consist when it comes to property rights in south of Albania, Ambassador? I'm sure you're aware of it.
Of course I am, and this is one of the elements I was mentioning. I think in the last months we have seen positive movement in the right direction. The setting up of specific offices, 3 in particular in the south, and the start of the exchange of information necessary for the local community to being delivered the title of property. Dialogue between the government and local authorities and the community is essential. We have invited and we are supporting, by the way, with our expertise, this process, which is going in the right direction. We understand the importance for the community to be heard, and we understand that this consultation is taking place. So let's follow this direction. It is clear that without a solution of the property rights in this country, there will be no long-term investment from foreign countries. We have discussed this in the past. This is as important as other big reforms that in the country are taking place.
Ambassador, I know you're very ethical and you are not the source, but we have seen the negotiating framework as Euronews Albania that is being done, like the working document, you have the draft among the member states. And there are, in what we have counted, 9 member states that are skeptic and have issues with Albania. I don't know if you can name them or if you believe that the issues they are raising will not be a problem for the first intergovernmental conference.
You said it right. I'm very ethical. I am a professional, and I know that member states are discussing. I don't want to prejudge their final position. I know that there are national elements. You know, sometimes we forget that enlargement is not necessarily a foreign policy issue. Enlargement is called a national issue. Why? Because opening a house and making somebody entering is not only a question of foreign policy, it's a question of putting the house in order. And if in one apartment there is a problem, this can impact the rest. Other. Let's have the member states discussing. I think that the signal that will come from Tirana in the next weeks are crucial. Political dialogue, the correctness, the implementation of the 5th of June agreements, the Constitutional Court, these are the messages that we need to get in order to finally open this path that we all want to be open.
And the final question, Ambassador Soreca, it looks like we have somehow our destiny with Albania and North Macedonia was during the last year for the opening of negotiations linked together, and we know the famous phrase decoupling.
Yes.
Is it going to happen this year?
I think North Macedonia and Albania are entering this final stage with a different set of conditions, as you know. North Macedonia has gone through a very important political development, election, a new government. There are still issues that are being discussed between North Macedonia and member states. Our wish, as you know, and as the economic and investment plan say very clearly, that we want the region to go ahead together. And we hope that both countries will go ahead. That being said, the member states will apply the merit-based approach, and the final decision will be on that basis. But the hope is that the region continue to move ahead together.
November, a crucial month for all of Albanians and the region. So let's work hard, all of us.
Yes, and the EU and the delegation is, as usual, here to support the dream of more than 90% of Albanians.
Luigi Soreca, thank you very much for this interview.
It was my pleasure finally to be here. I'm very happy to have had this chance with you. Thank you, Ilva.